Welcome back to a little bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. Returning back from Las Vegas, Nevada, it is Sam Douglas. I am Cody Depius. We'd like to welcome you in on our Monday show. This is that time of the year. I saw on Barstool Sports, they talked about it as maybe one of the worst weeks of the entire year for the sports landscape. I mean, coming out of the All-Star break, you don't have baseball. I mean, you had the NHL, the Four Nations face-off. That was pretty cool. That got a lot of people involved that didn't even know that that tournament existed. I didn't until it showed up on TV, USA versus Canada. I was like, let's tune in. That's awesome. But other than that, things are really slow, getting ready for the NFL Combine. But Wisconsin, what I said should have been a comfortable victory on Saturday, what shouldn't have been any competition, looked like it was going to be that way through the first, I'd say, 3/4 of that game. Wisconsin at one point held a 17-point lead, but ultimately falling to Oregon 77-73, the final score in overtime. They scored 11 points in the last 12 minutes of regulation. Some of the worst Badger basketball I think I've ever seen over a stretch of 10 minutes. 17 turnovers throughout the course of the game. They shot 25% from three. They also shot 23 attempts at three. So Wisconsin just playing sloppy basketball and a bad loss to Oregon on Saturday.
That shouldn't have been a problem to win that game, and they were the better team. They showed they were the better team throughout the game, and then it was just an absolute choke job at the end. I saw a lot of discourse blaming Greg Gard, and yes, some of it has to go back to coaching. You're up 3 with 18 seconds left and the ball in your hands, and you're an 84% free throw shooting team. You should win that game. It's just execution. We talked about this, with the Packers all season long. It's just doing the thing that you know that you can do, inbounding the ball. They even got another chance. Then Blackwell dropped the second shot. Klesmet had a bad shooting day, and he's the one that takes the last shot of regulation. It's just poor execution down the stretch, and all-time choke job. That being said, it's the Big Ten, man. These games are hard. Oregon's a good team. They're gonna fight, and you can't take any of these games for granted. I don't think when it comes down to just some mental flubs at the end and bad shooting that this is a sign for what's to come. This hasn't been the norm for this Badgers team. They've got a tough game coming up, so I don't think it's a sign of things to come. But yeah, all-time choke job. Absolutely brutal.
It was bad. Yeah, everything, all things considered, you do have to bring a part of it to coaching, which I will say Greg Gard has done an incredible job this year. This team has exceeded so many people's expectations, ours included, 100%. But that was a game where for the first good chunk of it, it looked like what it was supposed to, but just choking as much as I've seen a team choke in college basketball this year, which I'll be honest, I haven't watched a whole lot of. But that was just sloppy basketball and not the way that you go and win games when it gets close to the end of the year. I still think that there's an opportunity Wisconsin has that they can go and win the Big Ten tournament. I think that they can beat anybody that is within the Big Ten. And like you said, this Oregon team, their best is good. Their bad is also really bad. They've lost to some poor teams, but they also, I think, have the second most quad one wins in the NCAA. I think they have 9 quad one victories. They're just above 500 in the Big Ten, so they can beat the really good teams. They've beaten Alabama this year. They've beaten a lot of really solid teams, had some good victories, but some bad losses, and that's why you don't see them in the rankings. But Oregon's best, combined with Wisconsin's worst, whether a 17-point deficit, that's what can happen. So Wisconsin just needing to stay true to itself. I think they'll bounce back. I'll ask a little bit of a cheese grater question when it comes down to the end of this, but personally, I'm not too worried about it, but you can't have these moments show up when the season matters most. I will say that, and I will leave it at that. They'll take on Washington at home tomorrow. Now, I know Sam... Oh, continue.
They've got an opportunity. They can see this as an opportunity. It's good to go through this against the Oregon team, when you're not in the tournament. quite yet. So I am glad that they went through some of these situations where it's a late game situation, got to have it. Now they know what they shouldn't do. Hey, let's make sure Tanjay takes that last shot. Let's make sure that we have two great inbound plays available. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity for this team to learn and grow from, because they are going to be in crunch time situations when it matters more than just playing Oregon in February.
Yeah, and those Saturday morning, afternoon games just feel weird to me. I feel like I've seen this team just fall flat on multiple occasions like this at home. Like the Saturday and afternoon, like your home game, I don't know if your home environment is the same as it would be for like a Friday night game in Madison. Like you're going to have I'll say a much more family-friendly environment at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, where maybe your home court advantage isn't quite as much as you would expect from a typical like Friday night Wisconsin crowd. So I'll add that as well. It's a bad loss, but I don't think it's a killer. And they have an opportunity to make it back up in the Big Ten tomorrow. I do think that the regular season championship for the Big Ten is out the window with that loss, but just look for seeding, see if they can bounce back against Washington. And I know this next topic Sam has had on his heart. It is here with his name as a little bit of tramadol today. We'll talk a little bit about Bobby Portis. He's been suspended for 25 games, now has 24 left on that suspension. He messed up with the prescription drug that he was prescribed. He thought he was taking Toradol, but ended up taking tramadol. He was prescribed it by the doctor, but took an illegal drug. In the eyes of the NBA, it was on the banned substance list. I mean, the test came out positive for a negative substance, so you have to essentially put some blame on the player. I had my take last week where there's multiple people at fault, of course, and it's really silly, and I think that 25 games is pretty harsh considering Miles Bridges is a domestic abuser and only got 30 games, and I see Sam nodding. I think he might have a little bit of an agreement, but I do want to hear his thoughts, as I know you have been a very high and very low person when it comes to Bobby Portis. Like, we love him as a character, of course. As a player, I know you had him on your trade block, but this is some very big news, and I think it's going to affect this Bucks team in the long run here.
It is big news, and Bobby's a big and important player for us. This suspension is absolutely absurd. For those who don't know, tramadol is closer to ibuprofen than just about than anything else on the banned list. Like, this is a painkiller that no NBA player in their right mind is trying to get an edge by taking tramadol. It's so close to Toradol. You can't expect that Bobby was doing anything to get an edge to do this. And like you said, the John Morant got 8 games for his third time flashing a weapon on Instagram Live after multiple warnings from the league. Miles Bridges 30 games, and Bobby's getting 25 games for taking a not even an opioid painkiller. Like, this is absolutely absurd. And we see this in professional sports. I'm a little shocked that tramadol is on that banned list. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the ins and outs of medications. But you see a lot of, and we saw it with Brett Favre, pro athletes turn to painkillers because they put their body through so much. So if we want, you'd think that tramadol or something on that end of the spectrum would be more allowed than letting them resort to some more severe painkillers or illegal medications or pot or, whatever it else may be. So the suspension is absolutely absurd. That being said, my entire Bobby Portis mindset at this point, his suspension and him being on the team, it is what it is. He's on the team. We didn't trade him. He is suspended. This is an opportunity for the Bucks. This is an opportunity for the young guys. We knew that we were going to be pursuing some small ball lineups going forward. We're going to see a lot more KPJ. We're going to see more Giannis at the 5. Brooke is still going to be holding down. Hopefully we see some Sims minutes coming up. We're going to see more Torian Prince playing some of that 4 spot. A lot more Kuz is going to get his minutes. This is an opportunity for the Bucks. It just is what it is at this point. Bobby's going to be out, and we're going to have to learn how to play like that.
Well, the Bucks showed yesterday that they can play like that. They did get down early to Miami, but a great victory at home over the Heat on a Sunday evening game where Tyler Hero dropped 40, but Milwaukee still able to prevail. This is their fourth straight victory, now 32-24. They are in fifth place, just a half game back of fourth from the Pacers. And Kuzma, who you said is going to get a lot more minutes, he got his minutes and played very solid defense down the stretch. He was tough when it came to defending Tyler Hero, was able to hold him back from getting those last-minute buckets and helping Milwaukee ultimately get the win. How big was this, do you think, for the Bucks?
It was huge, man. It was that fight back mentality. It was big for Kuz showing his role on the team. And my monster of the week is KPJ, man. It's Kevin Porter Jr. We absolutely fleeced the Clippers for him. He's a dog. He's a player.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast with Bobby Portis on it actually last week when I was in Vegas, and he said that they were talking about group chats, like when trades happen, does Chris Middleton just leave the group chat? Does someone kick him out? Like, what happens with that? And so that conversation kind of started. He said there's a third party who just removes 3 people and adds a couple people. Nice. Kevin Porter Jr. and Damian Lillard are the 2 guys who are the most talkative in the group chat. I love that. And you see that out of him. You saw it out of him last night. He's got that energy. He can rile up the team. He scored 7 straight. In the third quarter when we were down, it felt like he scored 20 straight. He was electric. He was all over the place. He's got that energy. And man, I hope he can keep his nose clean, because I want this guy to re-sign with the Bucks. I want him to stay on this Bucks team. He's got that young dog mentality that if he can keep it clean, man, it's the backup point guard we've wanted for 10 years.
Absolutely. I love seeing the little bit of a switch up, because, of course, when you see that trade, the initial reaction is, oh, no, no. But now you watch him play a little bit, and I brought it up before, but this is a perfect situation for Kevin Porter Jr. to help himself keep his nose clean. He is around some of the best role models in the entire sport in Giannis and Dame. Like, this could save his career, and it could do a lot more for him and his character as well. And playing very well. 11 points in 14 minutes yesterday. He was running that small ball backup Bucks lineup yesterday really, really well. It adds so much depth to this team. A lot of offensive explosion off the bench. As a player, Kevin Porter Jr. looks like someone who could really help this Bucks team. And as you said, keep doing this, stay clean. And this is going to look like one of the biggest trades, especially if they can sign him to a longer-term contract here. This, like, trading away Marjan Beauchamp, who had no value to the Milwaukee Bucks, bringing in a guy who adds this much already, you won this trade, especially if you can keep this guy out of trouble. This is a really, really good move for the Milwaukee Bucks. So they're getting hot. They will have some competition this week. They'll be at Houston tomorrow to take on the Rockets, and then the Nuggets will be at Fiserv on Thursday. How important do you think this week is, as close as things are getting out there in the East, a half game back of the Pacers? You're playing one of the best teams in the NBA this week. How much influence does this have on the overall course of the season?
The Bucks really want to get that 4 seed. They don't want to end up in the Celtics side of the bracket. I think the Celtics are just a tougher out. I think they're still probably the best full team in the NBA. You want to be that 4. You want to be up on the Cavs side of the bracket. So they got to string together wins. And like I said, it just is what it is. We don't have Bobby. We've got the Rockets, Nuggets, and Mavs this week. Those are 3 teams that have dominant big men presences. So our front court is going to be tested. And we got to start stringing together wins, because that's what the good teams do. If you want to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, you got to be winning every 2-1. You got to be winning 2-1 for the rest of the season. So every game coming down this home stretch without Bobby is big. Giannis is on a minutes restriction. It's an opportunity, man. It's an opportunity. Kuz wanted some big time minutes in a big time role in regular season. KPJ wanted this opportunity. AJ Green's going to have his shots. Brooks going to have his shots. I'm excited to see what we do. I think we can go on a run.
I will say I like the change in energy post-trade deadline. I think the players that you brought in really, it feels already like it changed the mentality of this team. And this is no dig on Chris Middleton at all, or even Marjan Beauchamp. I'm not saying that they were bad players for the locker room, but sometimes a fresh face can add something a little bit different to your team and the chemistry of it. And I think that's That's at least the case that you saw yesterday against Miami. I feel like pre-trade deadline in that game, I don't know if they come back in that, but they were able to find themselves with the opportunity and they executed. It was something really nice to see, and it makes me feel a lot better about the trade deadline and how I think this Bucks team can keep on moving forward.
I think something that's unique to Kevin Porter Jr. and Kuz that's a benefit to this Bucks team. They have a I don't give a F attitude.
Yeah.
A lot of the other guys on this team want to feed Giannis. They want to appeal to Dame. They want to appeal to Giannis. If Giannis is waving his hands, the ball's going there. KPJ and Kuz, they don't care, man. They weren't raised with this Bucks team. They really don't care. And that's such a benefit. And that electricity, I think Giannis, he'll never say that he wants to be ignored when he's asking for the ball, but he wants someone on his team that's going to be like, screw off, I'm going. I love it.
Yeah, take the matter into your own hands at times. Like, yeah, you're gonna listen to the leader of the team most of the time, but there's got to be a time where you have the confidence that you can go out there and do it. And you definitely see confidence with Kuzma and KPJ out there on the floor. There is no lack of that whatsoever. So some good news in the Milwaukee Bucks front, the Milwaukee Brewers front. I'll say some neutral to positive news. Mark Canha and Manuel Margot signing minor league contracts with invitations to Major League Camp. I like this, especially with Blake Perkins going down. We remember Mark Canha. I was actually live at the game in person when Mark Canha hit a go-ahead grand slam against Washington in 2023. Sweet. I believe that was in September. He was a player I was hoping that Milwaukee would re-sign, but they had that logjam in the outfield. In hindsight, he didn't have that great of a year last year, but I love bringing in some Major League veterans with an opportunity to make a roster spot, especially when you have Blake Perkins injured. I think these are good moves, as much flack as I'm going to give Atanasio for how conservative they've been in free agency this year.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk with you right after Atanasio's comment. I listened to the pod. I think you nailed it. It's tough when we feel like we have such a strong base. And that's what you talked about on that last pod, is we have Churio. We have these young players. So go do something, and bringing in Canha is fantastic. But it's tough when Atanasio says, is it my job to win a World Series? But kind of it is.
How you do it?
You talk about bites at the apple. You got to bite the apple. You can't just be like, oh, we have this apple here. This is nice. You got to take swings. We saw John Horst do this with the Bucks. We tried bringing in Jason Terry, Eric Bledsoe, Greg Monroe, Mirotic. We tried, and then we finally hit with Drew. And so you've got to be taking bites at the apple. And so if this is, Brewers saying, oh, we're hearing that we're not signing anyone, we'll try it. If that's what's going on, bringing in Canha, I'm happy for it, but you got to be taking bites at the apple, and I like that they're investing in the young team that they have right now. I think while Churio is this young, you can absolutely do that. You can milk this growth process. But I think this is the last off season that you can really do that, because I think Churio is on a trajectory to be multiple-time MVP in this league, and you got to take advantage of that. You got to sell out and get this guy some weapons for. Get Churio some jewelry,
I mean, absolutely. I like the take. I would like to see a little bit more aggressiveness with the fact that you have Churio on such a cheap deal. And the only big contract on this team right now is Yelich. Your payroll isn't a lot. Yes, there's a lot of turmoil going on within your TV market and how much money that you've lost with Bally Sports going under. Now you're running with FanDuel Sports. Like, your TV market is the worst in baseball. They lost revenue from last year to this year. I understand that. And I'll say the point once again. You don't buy a Major League Baseball team to look at it in terms of a profit. You look at it to go and execute when your team has the opportunity to go win a World Series. How can you tool that team to give them the best capability to do so? I think Canha and Margot help. Talked a little bit about Canha. He's a player. He was an all-star, I believe. He had a pretty high ceiling, so this is a low-risk, high-reward kind of signing, just a minor league deal. Not going to hurt him too bad if he can't pan out. And the same thing with Margot. Both of these guys are veterans. Margot used to be a speed demon, got a little bit banged up, can still swing a pretty solid bat, really good contact, doesn't strike out a whole lot, and pretty solid defensively. So just another body out there, well, two more bodies out there to give a little bit more push and a little bit more depth in that outfield.
I love it. I don't know too much about Mario, but I'm excited to see him. Getting a bat. That's what we were asking for all last season, is a little bit of consistency. 162 games, and when you're not playing with a lot of depth, you got to add some guys. Yeah. You got to add that 13, 14, 15 hitters.
Yeah, and the reason that you bring a guy in when you can look at it and you say, well, you already have your four outfielders. You have Frelick, you have Mitchell, you have Perkins, and you have Yelich. I don't think that they're looking at Christian Yelich as an outfielder anymore, and I think this is a good thing. I don't want to see Christian Yelich in the outfield, so your outfield is a lot thinner when you start to look at things that way. Yes, there are going to be days when Contreras can't be catching, and he's going to need to be in the DH in that lineup, and then Yelich might have to play a little bit of left field. But I'm saying 5 out of the 7 days of the week, Yelich should not be in the outfield. So that's the reason they got to bring in some more bodies. And I think this is a good thing. Some other kind of news I have that Willie Adames might not be as much of a power hitter as Vinny Capra, had hit 2 3-run home runs on Saturday. So I'll say, like, we have Willie Adames at home. Vinny Capra is going to take that swing. And this all just goes to the point where with spring training baseball, you're going to have your heroes, and you can only read into it so much. Eric Haas last year, I believe, hit 430 in spring training, which ended up actually showing up a little bit in the regular season when he got his opportunity to play. But it gives an opportunity for a lot of guys that you might have never heard to go watch swing a bat and maybe hit a couple of home runs in a Brewers uniform. So I always love it for that sense, but Vinny Capra, 2 3-run bombs, and the last one was a walk-off home run on Saturday. As little as I care about spring training baseball, I thought that was really cool for a 29-year-old guy who played a little bit on the roster last year. He knows there's a hole open at third base. If he can rake this year, he's going to have to get a look, because right now Caleb Durbin is probably the guy that has the job to lose. So somebody can go and take that, I would think, pretty easily. But Durbin, starting early on Saturday, you would expect that he's the guy that Milwaukee wants to be in that position. Oliver Dunn is going to get looks as well. But maybe Vinny Capra saying, hey, guys, I'll throw my hat in the ring as well. Give me a couple looks and give me the opportunity. So we can now transition into the cheese grater. Sam, I know you got a couple, maybe one extra cheese grater, a little bit a 4th down call. So I'll let you start us off today with the cheese grater.
Yeah, I started writing down the graders. I ended up with 4. It is what it is. Hey, the Badgers extended Fickle through 2032. It's just a 1-year extension, but kind of funny timing. You a fan?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of. Yes, I don't care. I mean, they can go and fire the coach regardless, too. That's a whole long time. I don't know if Fickle was the one that came up and was looking for a little bit extra security. I'm not sure why just a 1-year extension was in the books. I don't know why that was a conversation at this point, as they'll check my calendar. Oh, it is still 2025. So a long time that they had to go and make that extension if they're looking for 1 year. So that's actually news to me. I will be honest. I didn't know that. Is there any news on it? Did they have any public quotes about the reason for it?
I didn't see any reasoning. I saw they extended Fickle, and I was like, interesting. Wasn't he on a hot seat? And then I saw it was just a 1 year, and it just all feels a little bit goofy. I think it's the Badgers' first losing season since 2001, so under Alvarez at least. And then you go extend the coach after that. It just felt goofy. It's all a little bit weird.
I mean, maybe he's asking for that before his team goes out and wins maybe only 4 games this next year. When you look at the schedule, like, as rough as it was to watch Wisconsin football this year, you can't raise your expectations at all for next year. I'm going to put that out on the table very low for me. And it's not that the team, I think, is going to be worse, but the competition is going to get that much harder. So maybe that's the reason. Maybe he's like, I'm on the hot seat. Maybe we'll just get an extra year guaranteed on this contract. Like, go get that money before he thinks that he might feel his seat get a little bit hotter. That'll be my take on it. The NFL Combine coming up. How much do you care?
A little bit. I think you learn a lot about these guys.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to throw out a top of the end, I think you're looking for the top end guys. The top 10 speedsters, the top 10 bench pressers. You can learn a little bit about these guys, no doubt. Now the tape is the tape, and that's always going to have the highest precedence. But you saw it with a guy like Xavier Worthy last year, who put out a awesome 4.2, pushed his draft stock, ended up being a bona fide quality wide receiver one. Now there were some injuries in that locker room, but absolutely the combine, there's an opportunity. I've said that a couple times on this podcast. It's an opportunity for guys to shine.
It's an opportunity for Gutekunst to find the athletic freak that he thinks he should draft in the first round regardless. I will say that when you have a guy like a Lucas Van Ness who didn't start at all his junior year at Iowa, like it's probably a big day for Brian Gutekunst. I wish maybe it wasn't that big of a day. I don't know. I'll always think that it is best player available. You go out and you find a way and you find your way around it. This year, definitely some holes that they have to fill. You have to look at that defensive secondary. Maybe you find that corner from your cone drill. Maybe you look at one of the top guys from the cone drill. I don't know. I don't read into it at all. I'm more on the lines where I think it's the underwear Olympics because it's I saw all the records. I know the NFL posted all the records from the NFL Combine. And all the guys that have the records, I don't know if I remember any of them making any Pro Bowls. Like as much as it can help raise your stock, oftentimes the best athletes, like the top athletes, are not the best football players when it comes to a specific thing. It is your well-rounded athlete that goes down to scouting, that goes down to what's between the ears, how smart is this player, how good is he instinctually at football, and I think that, as you said, the tape sets the precedence for how high your draft stock should be.
But like you said, Goody's there. He loves these athletes. Goody's there. ABS making an appearance in some minor leagues. Stoked about it? Scale of 1 to 10. 10, you're super stoked about it. You want it in the league tomorrow. 1, let's take our time and get it right.
I am more towards a 6. This is the 4th year that they have been trying this out, at least at the minor league level. So there have been some revisions. I mean, if you give a team 2 challenges a game, they're not going to be challenging every call. It's not going to be slowing down the game all that much. You're going to try to save those, you would think, for a high-pressure situation. There's a couple of guys on base, and that pitcher really needed that strike zone call. And he thought it was a strike. He thought it was on the black. I think the challenge is okay. I'm okay with it because it still gives the value to the catchers and how much they can impact the game with their framing metrics. So that's still a part of it. But when the missed strike call or the missed ball call hurts the most, now there's a chance that they can go and change that. I'm for it. I don't know if I gave my rating, but I'm going to give it like a 6.4. I feel good about it. I feel comfortable. I don't want to see it this year. I think one more year would be good, which 2026 is the first year that they would implement it in Major League Baseball. But I'm a nuanced guy. I think this is a good thing for baseball. I'll put it out there. Your thought?
I love it. I'm there with you. Yeah, I'm probably closer to a 7.5. But baseball's been doing a lot to increase viewership, make it more exciting for the fan, and I think this is absolutely tailored to that.
If you got the technology, I mean, in every single sport, you've seen replay be used, and you've seen it now in baseball too. Why not for your strike zone? That is the most. That was a strike or that wasn't a strike. It's white and black. That's what the strike zone is. Now you're helping make it a little bit more distinct. With that game yesterday, how worried are you about the value loss with Bobby Portis being suspended for this stretch of Bucks basketball?
5 out of 10. Like I said, he's an important player, but KPJ more minutes, Kuz more minutes. These guys need time with Giannis and Dame. So while we do need to be stacking wins, and Bobby is huge out there, he's a double-double guy every time he's on the court. He's very important. This is an opportunity for the guys who needed an opportunity, who needed these minutes to run with the starters. So if we can win, you hate to say it's a good thing, but if we're going to be losing, it absolutely has the possibility to be a train wreck of a situation. It's not looking like it though. So I'm sitting at a 5 out of 10. And like I said, we got 3 games this week where we're playing against dominant front courts, and I think we're going to learn a lot when we play the Rockets, Nuggets, and Mavs.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to skip one of these, and then
All right.
more likely Brewers. If we're throwing a no-hitter this season, is it going to be the team, or do we have a starter who can put it together for a day?
It will be the team. I don't see a single starter in this rotation that I am trusting into even the 8th inning. And this is kind of the way that Brewers baseball has evolved. I think since I started watching heavily in around 2008, there might have been only like, I'll take CC Sabathia out of it because he was an anomaly. He's an outlier.
Yeah.
There might be only 7 or less complete games in all of Major League Baseball. Like even when you saw Corbin Burns going to the 8th a couple of years ago, he actually finished the 8th. They didn't even throw him out there for the 9th. That's just the way that it is. Once you hit 100, they're going to take you out. You can have a no-hitter going, and they still will take you out just because they just don't look at it as much as they used to. I think they still look at the value in a no-hitter for a team aspect, which doesn't sit right with me. So I think if they get a no-hitter, it's definitely going to be by the team. I don't see an arm in this rotation that I trust going into the 8th inning right now anyway, because I think these guys just, a lot of them fall off when it gets to that third time through the order. So a no-hitter is very unlikely, as we all know anyway, but that's kind of just where I'll leave that. So for my last cheese grater question, the Wisconsin Badgers, you saw how things could get a little bit sour. What is the impact of the Wisconsin Badgers if they lose in the first round again this year?
What can you do? You gotta revamp. I think guard keeps his job no matter what. I think he's outperformed the expectations. I think guard is safe. With the transfer portal being what it is, you got to go get some guys. You got to go get some dogs. Winning in the Big Ten is tough, and they've shown that they can do it. I do not expect them to lose in the first round, but they've shown us that they have the capability of being that 3-14 upset team. So I don't think that they would need to be a massive overhaul, but probably a lot of coaching changes other than Greg Gard if they do go out in the first round. It has to do with preparedness. It has to do with, season opportunity. It has to do at some point with the Jimmies and Joes rather than the X's and O's. So they got to get some mad talent in there. Tanjay was a nice find. I don't know. To be an Elite 8 team, to be a Final Four team, you need better than, he's better than we expected. You need some dogs on your team. And if the Badgers want to be a perennial top 10 NCAA basketball team, you got to start creating that culture. You got to go get, a couple first-round draft picks on your team.
You need a big man, I think is what it is. Like a dominant big man that you trust to go grab the board at the end of the game. That's awesome.
Makes sense. Hey, happy to have some cheese with you, Cody.
Come again?
Happy to have some cheese with you, Cody.
Oh, awesome. Happy to have some cheese with you too, Sam. Yes, I forgot you scrapped your last cheese grater question. But I will say, what's Gouda for the week? Tucker Kraft has announced that he and his wife are going to be having a child, so congratulations. Sam and I will be back on Friday with another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.